Oh, thank you very much, my non-technical friend.
Yeah,
wow.
Sorry, your seat.
Hi, I'm Alex. We only have some nice places at Ryerson University, so we tend to show them to you on our first slide. I have a few, well, I'd first like to thank Aisha Benner for forcing me to be here. I have a few apologies to make before I begin. One, I'm in computer science, so I may or may not agree with fist pumping about soft skills. They are important, but there are other skills which might be helpful too. I also am an old guy. I remember things, and so some of what I'm going to say is colored by being old. So sorry. And you might also notice that computer science is kind of a young person sport, so I'm trying not to get fired. Let's start with simplistic definitions. Science of examining raw data with the purpose of extracting information, right? So what we really have is a bunch of stuff that everybody has generated, and now we have better tools to actually look at that stuff, and what we're hoping is that we can get some real meaning out of it, right? It's inference-based, so we hope to generate knowledge from this data all by itself. So common uses, you know these common uses, right? So these are the common uses right now. So industry, business expects it to somehow create the magic competitive edge, right? Or help you with your customer, maybe make your customer happier so they don't leave, right? In science, we intend to use it to verify or disprove existing models or theories. Every few years we have something like this actually who will make sure that what we're doing is exactly right, but isn't quite working just yet. It's also an incredibly fast-growing job market. The previous presentation actually indicated some of that. The growth rate is kind of phenomenal. And many people don't know it exists because it's kind of being driven by strange drivers. So data scientist, if you're going to do data analytics, I guess you can coin yourself a data scientist. Aisha and I work pretty closely together. So Aisha considers herself a data scientist. I do not. I don't know enough about it to say that, but I'm going to comment a little bit about what maybe a data scientist is. Extract, manipulate, and analyze the data to create knowledge, right? So that's the key. So the characteristics of a data scientist, you got to know stats. Because pretty much you can't do much without math, so you need math. You need to know how the gears work, right? So the guy who welds the pipes, that's an important guy. And if you know if a weld is about to fail, you kind of need to know that too, right? So you have to know the tinkering bits. What I find a little disconcerting is this computational thinking has been replaced by the term hacker. You don't need hackers, actually. You need people who think computation. Communicators, right? So a lot of the soft skills you're talking about is actually being able to speak to people in ways that they can understand. I hope to be able to do some of that today, because I don't understand some of the jargon that we introduce. Inquiry driven. You got to be curious to do it. It can't just be your job. My first job, I worked for Bell Canada. My first job was in 1988. I actually generated this huge report on paper. It was a giant box, and it got shipped to a data center, and that data center stored it. You know who looked at that report? Nobody. We have data like that now. We just don't print it. So you may be a data scientist if you understand this joke. See, some do, some don't. There are a lot of applications where data science would be useful, so I want to help actually push that forward. So data is the key. So if data is the key, we kind of have to know that we don't know anything. So I'm going to try and convince you that you don't know anything, even though you think you know what this stuff is. So I'm going to talk about a concept that you understand probably, and a concept that's from that concept which you don't understand, and I'll explain why you don't really understand it. So here's stuff that we knew. 8 bits in a byte, right? Byte, it's pretty straightforward. You can, and the description is like, well, that's it, right? I'm pictorial, right? So this is how I think of things. But remember, I'm an old guy. Kilobyte. It's about a printed page. It's also the amount of memory. 4K was about what they could jam onto Apollo 11 when it landed on the moon. When it crashed, it didn't do anything, actually. $250,000 computer made at MIT. And actually, it ended up being a guy with a bunch of basically doing lunar lander to land that sucker. So it didn't even work, right? But that's how I think of it. 4K. I could see that, 4,000 things. Megabyte. Oh, that's a long book, like War and Peace. Gigabyte. Well, that's how much stuff I can store on my MP3 player, pretty much. Terabyte. Yeah, now it's getting a little weird, right? Because now, yeah, actually DVDs, like there's this Blu-ray stuff, I'm not really sure what that is, right? But I know at Costco I can get it for about 68 bucks a terabyte. So I can go there, you see it, you can actually walk there and you can get that thing, and it's 68 bucks a terabyte. You can buy 2 terabytes, got double that, right? Okay. Large enterprise data, it's a petabyte. I have no idea. It's 1,000 terabytes, right? That's a lot of, well, I mean, we don't even know. I'm not even talking about what it is. It's just a lot of it. If there was a petabyte of stuff in here, that would be an amazing amount of stuff. Oh yeah, Google does 20 petabytes a day. Oh, wait a minute. Google did 20 petabytes a day in 2008. An exabyte. So this is the total number of words that have ever been spoken, or written, or in any way been dealt with by humanity. The next one, I forget what the next one is, right? But at some point it becomes incredibly academic. In fact, one of them is a yottabyte, which was named after Yoda. That's how little people understand this growth, right? So then you get this thing, 996 exabytes, which is probably whatever the next one is now, because this was taken last year. And then you get this. This is what happens in a minute on the internet. And some enterprises are dealing on the internet at this scale. Holy crap! Right? So why don't you understand this? Because I don't. Right? I understand that thing up there, because that's kind of straightforward. But this, well, the problem is it's an exponential curve. Right? So we are not good. We're linear, right? We're linear people. If I had to walk exponentially, I don't know what I would be able to do. So I'd like walk out the door, and if I could go up, I'd be like flying in like 10 steps. We don't do that, right? So we have difficulty even understanding this. So let me talk a little bit about context. So that's the nature of the game, right? And here's the people who are going to play that game. Right now, we're in an era of precarious work. I'm from Toronto, so really about half the population of Toronto and Hamilton taken together are in a precarious work situation, meaning they have a contract or something that gives them enough to live, but not enough to actually move forward with their lives. Imagine that, you have a house. Oh man, you don't have a house because you don't have a job where you can talk to a bank to actually get that house and have a mortgage on it, right? You know what I mean? Precarious, right? You can be fired. There's not just a skills gap, there's a paradox in the skills, right? So we have people with, actually, who are told they need these skills, but then those skills move on and they don't actually have those skills. And so we have this kind of gap where people demanding skills, these people trying to acquire those skills, these people changing what they're demanding, and it's problematic. And this is always raising the bar. So I'm old, I admit it. So skill sets needed in 2009. So this is from a McKinsey report, I believe. So this is the number of things you had to be able to do. This could be anything from being able to type to being able to work in Excel. That was 2009. And now we're up at 924. Right? So that's nothing to do with data analytics or anything else. But everybody wants everything. The unicorn in the room, right? It's like we don't have a unicorn, we want to make one. Funding. Now, this is near and dear to all the academics in the room, I think. So this is Ontario, but This is a neat graph, right? So student government contributions to Ontario University operating budgets, and you'll notice the blue line is the funding, and the student contribution is this one, and those are significant because you might notice one of them is unsuitable for students. Tuition is higher and higher all the time, so getting a 4-year undergraduate degree is incredibly expensive. Because the grants are reduced, all universities are under pressure to make this one go up because that one is going down, and so we're in this really bad spot. Also, we are dealing with a different, new bunch of people. I'm the tail end of the baby boomers, right? So we're on the road to, well, you'll see. So that's their age demographic. They've never known a world without immediate information, right? So this happens instantly. In fact, some of you might be looking it up to verify that that's true. They're successful do-it-yourselfers, meaning they've had to do it themselves because really they're screwed, right? They didn't have the benefit of us boomers, right? So we had the benefit of growing everything. Like I had 4 job offers when I first came out of university. Now you're difficult to actually beat any of that up. So this is the generation that takes over from us. I didn't do the, it was too hard for me to make the graphics for this one because this is the millennials and, well, this one is kind of the ground and there'd be a coffin here at some point. Not me though, you have to drag me holding on to my filing cabinet. I don't know about that, so I'm going to tell you about some things that I do know about. My area is actually something called computational public safety. I'm interested in disasters, so I'll show you some things about disasters first. Disasters are generally more and worse in the world. These are graphs I just pulled randomly from the internet. Let's see. Come on. Oh, there it is. What's that number there, my friend? The one in the upper right-hand corner.
Looks like 14.
That's number 14. I have an app. Everybody has an app. This basically indicates whenever some significant event that's negative in nature happens in the world, it gives me a little thing. That's from 8 o'clock this morning. Philippines. Anybody from the Philippines? 3rd most disaster-prone place in the world. They have everything happen to them, right? And they're trying to build an economy. So you have typhoons, earthquakes, you have volcanoes. You have all kinds of storm, pestilence, all manner of corruption. Everything happens in the Philippines. There are other places that are worse, but this is a significant population. They also have a lot of cell phones. This is the world cell phone trend. This is the Philippine trend. That's 100. And so basically, if that's 100%, wow, they have more phones than people. Phones are also better. So this is mobile phones versus desktop, and you notice that they've crossed now. So that means people are moving away from this big heavy thing, this big heavy thing, to something that fits in your pocket, because there's a lot of advantages in it in a place that's developing. You power it from a generator, you can get those battery backup things, they're cheap, they're resilient, they don't break that easily, so of course they're going to go this way. Cell phone knows where it is. Now, we're going to disagree on this, but it kind of knows where it is, right? So if it knows where it is, you are where your cell phone is.
No, it's over there, not here.
In the large scale, it doesn't matter their exact location, but it does matter their aggregate location. Super Typhoon Yolanda, I forget the other name for it, but 6,300 killed outright over a 3-day period. There are not many countries that can withstand that, but they've had it happen so often that it just becomes the norm. So they have a lot of incentive. 3rd most disaster-prone country in the world. So they have a lot of data, right? But they don't have meetings to decide what to do with the data. they have the data, and they have a typhoon that's going to be happening next week. Or actually, this Hurricane Bill. It turned into a tropical depression. It happened yesterday. So they have incentive to do stuff with the data. And they have been. So data science implications. Social media. Everything's immediate, everything's pervasive, and everything by its nature is big because everybody's scared all at once. Well, actually, it's not true. They're not scared all at once. They kind of go in waves. So we have naive applications, right? So here's a naive application. I would call it a big data application in a sense. They took some crap from Google Earth. They took some weather data available from the US Weather Service. They took some map data from someplace else. They took some initial readings from other weather places, and they just plotted a path. This is a guy, he made this up. He didn't get paid for it. He just made it because he needed it. He had relatives who were actually being affected by this bad thing coming down here. He made that. So that's the naive application. The guy doesn't have a skill set to actually make this. He actually learned it online, he did it. And then you have the more interesting things you can worry about when you're waiting for the next storm. All this stuff is generating data. So we just look at a data. When you have your meeting, all those CIOs are talking about it in an abstract way. This is not abstract. Those tweets were happening at times when the storm was coming forward. It doesn't matter what the tweet said. The fact that there's activity is significant. That's the peak of the storm right there. Okay, I don't know what the application is for that. The point is I don't have an application for that. That's significant, right? We don't even know what to do with that, right? So the skills gap, making talented data analytics professionals, is all about knowing where you are in a graph, actually. So I made this thing up. It has no basis in fact, but some of you who are old like me might know some truth in this. So here's a great idea. Now, if you plot that great idea on a graph, where one area is buzz, and the other area is time, you end up with a whole bunch of innovation. This is our innovation technically. So there's more innovation than this. This is like our skill set stuff, right? And there's more. There's soft skills and all this other stuff you have to worry about as well, and that all goes in there too. And we're really happy about that, so we draw a line through it. And then we call that line the slope of excitement. Holy crap, this is really going to go well. We have a bunch of tools, we have a bunch of data, we have a bunch of people interested in learning the tools to do with the data, and we have a bunch of, well, actually we don't know what to do with it yet, but we are going to make a lot of money. Time continues. Then there's the maxima of expectations. So this is the area where everybody thought everything was going to go swimmingly and the unicorn will be made. Followed by the maxima and the minima of disillusionment. Now, disillusionment is not finished, right? It's a part of a cycle. What you want is this curve of maturity, because once you start having applications, so this is stuff that worries about the data, and over here is stuff that worries about doing something useful with the data. That's productivity. Productivity is where you make money, where you save lives, where you can change government, where you can change modes of democracy. Lots of stuff can happen if you have decent applications. You're not here. So I don't have a big survey. I just went on the web. And I did a count. Actually, I didn't do the count. One of our colleagues from computer science did this count. And so count of vacant big data positions in the first 100 job entries in a Google search, right? It's very naive. 76% were about infrastructure. 22% were about applications. Mostly, holy crap, who's going to make these applications for us? It comes back. So our first cut on this is weird, right? So all of us kind of got hit by this giant wave of data analytics, including me. I'm not a data scientist, right? But I kind of do stuff at Wax. So I was called in, and so this is our kind of first experience of making anything to do with this. Started with a collaboration because we have difficulty doing stuff alone. So the three departments start worrying about this. So computer science, math, mechanical, industrial engineering. This is driven by Aisha Benner. Made the whole thing up, basically, but all of us kind of climb on board in stupid ways. Right? Across two faculties, so engineering and architectural science, and the Faculty of Science got together to do this. Oh yeah, and one school. So the Chang School, G. Raymond Chang School of Continuing Education, because this is where our first offering will be offered, because we want it to be fast. Right? So I work in FOS, I work in FES, and I work in the G. Raymond Chang School. So we thought, hey, let's make a certificate. There's also a person that should be mentioned, who's critical to this, an energetic woman by the name of Anne-Marie Brinsmead, who basically powers through everything. So the whole thing was conceived, proposed, approved, launched, and revised in less than 9 months. Impossible at the university. So that means somebody had the idea, and everybody else got kind of shoved down this pipeline to the point where the Senate of the university said yes. After the word go, it was operational in 4 months. So the learning environment, this is the buzz, but basically our intent is to provide technical skills and some soft skills to a group of learners who within a year conceivably could get this skill set and go away and do something useful. So we have the certificate, Data Analytics, Big Data and Predictive Analytics. It has a series of courses, so let me give you the courses quickly so I don't eat up your coffee time at all. So there they are, right? So all of these are, well, we didn't do this in a vacuum. They kind of align to all of this, and when I mean kind of, I mean they align exactly. So when you do that, you get this. Well, actually, you don't get it, but it prepares you for this. So then we have certification at the end. We don't do certification, but we do this with certification, so there's a place for them to go. Now, if you remember who the learners are people who want jobs. Hey, and the buzz is really big right now for people who want to give them jobs. So this is a really big opportunity for Ryerson, and it's a really good opportunity to serve our core constituency, which are students who need some place to actually go. So I'm going to talk, screw this big data analytics crap. I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about, right? So I'm going to talk about disasters, right? Because I'm interested in computational public safety. So I'm going to talk about some very fundamental things. At the end of the day, I should argue about this stuff all the time. She's a very deep thinker, and I worry about rocks, right? Like literally stuff that happens in a disaster. So one of the things I worry about is this. You know what that is? Anybody recognize that? Come on. Use your analytical skills.
It's a box.
It's a box. That's right. It's actually model number 0550 from a company called Pelican. FEMA purchases millions of these boxes. And in fact, if you want to make money, you can actually probably watch where disasters go across the Philippines. And you will see shortly thereafter, about a month after, Pelican will make a huge profit because all the people who are worried about disasters carry all of their equipment in those boxes. And those boxes get broken. So they have to order new boxes. They're just boxes. They're also people, right? So in a disaster, you've got lots of boxes with lots of equipment, and you've got lots of people. So this is a picture of Virginia Task Force 1. I work somewhat closely with them. They're a FEMA task force, but they also rebadge when an international disaster happens and they become USAID 1. So this is actually the US government fastest to respond usually at everything. Because of Joe Biden, actually, he had to look at all their processes for how to respond to a disaster and said, screw this, you get to decide. So the task force commander goes when he decides. Oh, we have dogs, because dogs are how people search for in Rebel. So all of this stuff is great. They do a really good job. Now here's the operations research, big data component kind of thing. There's a problem, and here's the problem. Anybody recognize that?
Yeah, C-17.
Yeah, that's even worse than a C-17. That's a C-130. So that's a C-130, and it's the workhorse of disaster response. The problem is it's also the workhorse for the military. So often this is a resource that's constricted, right? And well, remember you have those boxes. And those boxes have to fit onto this thing. Oh, and wait a minute, you've got these guys, and they have to fit onto these things. And you got these dogs and all their equipment, they have to fit on this. Oh, there's a picture I didn't show. Another thing the US government's doing is grand challenges. Grand challenges are great. One of the grand challenges is, can you get a robot to actually turn off a valve and do all the jobs that basically these guys can do? And they're getting a little bit closer, but as they're getting closer, they have robots to do this, and the robots now have to fit onto this as well. And so this is like a puzzle, an NP complete puzzle, right? So you've got this robot that now needs to fit onto this, but wait a minute, this thing can only carry so many lithium-ion batteries, because there's a law about that. So it actually can't, well, it becomes a real problem. So you got to get that onto this onto this onto this, something I'm not showing you onto this. Oh, but wait a minute. When they finally get there, you've got all kinds of other problems, right? All of them are related to all kinds of things you didn't think of when you're trying to do all of this onto this to get this to there. Well, these are different places, right? So this is Haiti, 2010, had an earthquake, right? Everybody notice something about this, how this is different from this? This is Japan. Anybody notice a difference? Wood. This has wood. This doesn't have any wood. Well, all of this is predicated on you arriving in a place that has wood, because that's how you structurally shore up buildings that are about to collapse, right? When they got here, there was no wood. So the problem actually becomes, well, wait a minute, I have to pack that box full of different stuff so I can get to here, or maybe here, or I could get to here. But who are from Ontario? No, nobody? Oh, you was. This is mall collapse we had, right? Not a huge disaster. 2 people killed. Elgin Center Mall collapsed in a place called Elliott Lake. Who even knew that Elliott Lake even had a mall? But they had a mall, and it collapsed. There's thousands of these malls across northern Ontario, and they're in various stages of repair. 2 people unfortunately died, and the responsible agency in Ontario for doing this are actually 2. One is Toronto Hussar, Heavy Urban Search and Rescue, and a place that I work closely with, UCRT, so the Ontario Provincial Police respond. They get there, and ideally they would do this, but this is way up north, and there's no actual runway that can take this. So if they'd flown with this, they have an 8-hour window to respond. You're actually screwed if you're under rubble for more than 48 hours, right? So you got 8 hours for these guys just to respond with all of this. Now this isn't an issue because you can't use it. So now you need to have a bus and a truck. And you've got to load all your stuff onto the bus and the truck and get there, and that takes 14 hours. So now you've got 8 hours plus 14 hours, and you're going to respond to something that's not like this, not like this, and it's this. There's big data in all of this. We've been doing this for generations. We have a huge amount of data gathered about what actually gets deployed. We know how it happened because it's all in government files, right? This is actually not given away easily. This is from the Department of National Defense, right? So they only issue this when there's a request made by the provincial agencies that are responsible for it. Public Safety Canada knows all about it. So all of this stuff becomes a huge problem. And there are 0 skill sets within the people who actually do the response to actually do the response this way. They do all the amazing life-saving stuff. They don't know about the data. So they're actually inventing it themselves. So this box is a US box. The Canadian box I don't have a picture of. But it's made by a company in Markham. And it actually is designed by a firefighter who made it more like a Rubik's Cube. So this thing actually has all kinds of edges on it. So our box actually is just a box. So you put the box in there and it can reconfigure to this airplane, to a C-17, it can reconfigure to a bus, it can reconfigure to a truck. So you move it around. So this guy, using only Excel, not R, not anything else, he developed a system which saves 30% on the airplane using past data, and he has 0 training in this. Now imagine what he could do if he actually had some training. So this is why we're doing this, to enable people we don't even know about to actually do something useful. And I guess that's where I'll end. I like graphs, so I'll give you a fun graph. That's it. Any questions? You don't know what to make of it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Thank you. You want to make it in time for coffee?
Well, thank you ever so much, Alex, for that. That was, I think you made a rather interesting point there. So, in a very, very amusing way to